Hello, dear friends. I know it's been a while since I was in the blogosphere, but my wife and I have recently begun a ministry known as the Julian Way in the disability context. Um, so that is taken up the bulk of my time lately. I would like to take a few minutes today and tell you of something that worries me greatly and makes me, frankly, inexpressibly sad. And that is the execution last evening of Worley Hill by the state of Georgia. Now, before I begin my thoughts in earnest, I would like to clear up or just take a couple of minutes, maybe less than 2 minutes, to tell you a couple of things about the case and where I stand so there's no question. I will tell you, I am unequivocally against the death penalty. I'm unequivocally pro life. Um, in all senses of the word, I do have sensitivities for the situation surrounding abortions that often come up related to that issue. But as far as being pro life and it being tied to anti-death penalty, I'm unequivocally against the death penalty, and you need to know that just so you know where I stand before this begins. Um, it is beyond doubt that Mr. Hill was in prison for the 1985 murder of his then girlfriend. He was serving a life sentence until in 1990, I believe, he was convicted for the 1990 slaying of a fellow inmate and sentenced by the state of Georgia to the death penalty. Those facts are unequivocal, and I would not seek to wrestle with them. Where this case gets murky is the fact that a vast majority of experts and medical testimony place Mr. Hill's IQ somewhere around 70. This is legally what we would call mentally challenged or disabled. And I read in a New York Times article earlier this morning, as well as a Huffington Post article, that he has the cognitive and emotional intelligence of a 10 or 11-year-old boy. What I find so troubling and what I think the church should sit up and take notice of, whether you are pro death penalty or nobody is pro death penalty, but whether your feelings on the death penalty are more neutral or you're anti death penalty, I think it behooves us as Christians and definitely those of us who are pastors to sit up and take notice of two things. One, the fact that a morally questionable or morally tenuous decision such as this, when you're dealing with somebody that has a mental challenge or developmental challenge or disability, is a slippery slope. After all, we know that the T4 program, the program that ended the lives of countless disabled individuals in Nazi Germany, began with taking those mentally disabled prisoners from occupied countries and euthanizing the prison population that was mentally or physically deemed insufficient. Now, I am in no way saying that the United States is headed toward the T4-like program as regards people with disabilities. What I am saying and what does trouble me is the first time a morally tenuous or difficult to swallow decision is made, it is controversial and very challenging and difficult. It becomes less so the more you do it. So this truly is a slippery slope. And if we can allow states such as Georgia to make decisions such as this, who's to say as a culture we won't let other situations that regard those with disabilities slide, even though they may be perceived as less reprehensible. Once you start down a slope, those hard decisions get easier to make. Secondly, the state of Georgia required Mr. Hill to prove his intellectual challenge or disability beyond a reasonable doubt. I want to take a couple of minutes, and I realize this is going to be a longer blog, but I'd like to take a couple of minutes and talk about how the need or desire to prove one's intellectual disability beyond a reasonable doubt is a cruel and reprehensible inversion or twisting of the concept of passing that's known in the disabled community. That is the concept that the non-disabled often, without stating it, require the disabled to pass as non-disabled or able-bodied to function well in the world and to function as quote-unquote normally as they can. This, as I said, puts pressure on the disabled to pass or appear as normal, quote-unquote, as they can. And in this case, when you have an inmate who is required to prove his mental disability or developmental disability beyond a reasonable doubt, the concept of passing gets cruelly inverted, and it's deeply troubling. I call on those in the church, and I call on those in the United Methodist Church especially, to bring this to your congregation's attention and start dialogues about the death penalty and about what we allow to be the perception of those with mental deficiency or so-called mental deficiency or developmental disability. Start dialogues about these things, talk about these things, and lead the way in moral decision making for the people called United Methodist. Thank you.